Batcave with Pat Brosnan.
And welcome to the show today. We're 30 feet underground, under a nondescript building somewhere in Gotham, and we wish you all the luck in the world in locating us. But we have to buckle up. Have to buckle up because today we're joined by a true American hero, a man who stared down bullets in the Bronx, built empires from the ground up, and turned every adversity into unstoppable momentum. Please welcome my great friend and former colleague from the 4-6 Precinct, John Lynn, Rockland County's legendary builder, developer, entrepreneur, and former NYPD officer. At just 22, John was shot at point-blank range alongside two fellow officers in the infamous Weeks Avenue massacre, and again at 264 Echo Avenue, where he was shot at yet again. I know the bullets were flying constantly in the 46th Precinct back in the early 80s and 90s, but it seemed like an inordinate amount of them were coming in John's direction. These crucible experiences forged the unbreakable resilience, composure under pressure, and a calculated risk mindset that propelled John into a remarkable 40-plus year career, developing a massive high-end residential subdivision in Rockland County, building and still owning a huge commercial office complex, earning his FAA commercial pilot license and flying air ambulance missions, authoring the true story book, Highgate to Hell, co-inventing the patented Stallmate cell phone lock. Wait, I feel like I'm petrified wood. John, you must be 200 years old to have accomplished this much. But it gets even crazier, folks. John also found the time to crush 49 triathlons, even selling a fellow athlete from drowning mid-race, and also crushed 9 full marathons. This is mind-bending stuff. Unbelievable. John Lynn has turned life-threatening adversity in the Bronx into an extraordinary legacy of success and accomplishment. And he stands as the ultimate example of transforming hardship to high achievement. John, welcome to the show. I'm both honored and thrilled to have you.
Pat, I'm the one honored to be here. I do appreciate everything you say, and that was very nice, Pat. I do appreciate that. As you know, I'm a bit of an introvert, not by personality, but by experience. So I'm quiet. And I think I told you the show is somewhat therapeutic for me because I never really talk much about, the past. I have very good coping skills, but I appreciate the fact that you were interested in more of my story.
I like that, John, and the fact that it's therapeutic must make me Dr. Brosnan then, the therapist, which you
Yes,
never
yes.
warned. But I do part company with you on your assessment of introversion, and you are a little bit quiet, but I translate that into actually being humble, self-effacing. And to me, those are admirable qualities, John. And when you were at the 46th Precinct, the university on the corner of Ryer Avenue, the UCRA, as us alma mater refer to it,
Yeah.
you faced down multiple shootings. How did those early brushes with danger shape the mindset you later brought to both big real estate deals and to business in general?
What a great question, Pat, because over the years, it really did affect the way I think about taking like business risk or legitimate risk. Because I always said to myself, like, I really even shouldn't be here based on what has happened to me. And one of the best things in my whole life was really working in the 4-6. I came from the suburbs and I was naive. I didn't know all this was going on 30 miles from my house, where I was very fortunate to grow up in a nice neighborhood and nice people and went to a nice school. And I was fascinated by how people, live like that and the violence that goes on there. And as much as I never looked for it, things always came to me. And as you know, people call me the black cloud. And I don't know if it's a compliment or not, but it is true. I would never look for it, but it would always come to me. And I've learned so much in just a couple of years there that I really believe it truly helped me through my whole life to do the things that I have done that propelled me into a position to do this interview with someone like you.
Well, black cloud, I think camouflaged, well camouflaged in there is a compliment, John, and it is. You were a magnet for gunfire, apparently. And it's interesting because I grew up in the 4-4, right next to the 4-6 on the Grand Concourse, the Champs-Élysées, next to Yankee Stadium. So I kind of knew how bad those areas were at the time, having lived through it in the Bronx my entire life, for 35 years, actually. But it's interesting that just 30 miles north was just so different, but the 4-6 was so incredibly violent, so densely populated, so many bad guys, and so many good folks as well. As you know, we coined it, a bunch of us, the most dangerous square mile in North America at the time. And that's based on factual evidence and reported census numbers. But the fact is, so much of that, comes back to February 25th of 86. My birthday, coincidentally, February 25th.
Never knew that, Pat. That's interesting. Never knew all these years, 40 years we've known each other. Never knew that.
I'll take a birthday cake, John. I do a street toot, so count me in.
Yeah.
But, the reality is the Weeks Avenue massacre, where you and two other young officers were all shot at point blank range over in the 4-6. Take us through that, John.
There was such a chain of events that were just amazing because none of us were hurt badly or got killed. But Pat, the other thing I wanted to add real quick is because of my learning. When I was in NSU, my sergeant said, "John, I put you in the 4-6 because you need to learn. You come from the suburbs." And he was right. And I wanted to be there because I was so fascinated about what a different culture it was that close to where I live. And I truly wanted to help the people down there. But in any event, the experience I got in such a short amount of time was just phenomenal. And watching people like you with experience and others is, I'm a big observer. I may not remember what I read, but I remember what other people do and say, and I kind of follow that. And the unbelievable training that we all had, through the NYPD.
Oh, that mindset that you established, from such a near-death experience, I think if you were able to just kind of take us through, here you are, you're 22, you're carrying a revolver, 6-shot revolver, you're a relatively new rookie in the 4-6, they're short term, and you get a call, I guess an armed robbery in progress over at 1776 Weeks Avenue, right off the Grand Concourse. Walk us through it, John.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the 4-6, Pat, is, robbery comes over. It's like you go there nonchalant. I don't even know if we had a license siren on 4 o'clock in the morning. We're just so used to it that you just think that, and it does go on so much. So get my partner to go to the address, and my partner was doing something outside, and I saw silhouettes through the plexiglass door of Weeks Avenue. There was a vestibule. And I had my gun out because it was a robbery. We were the first
This is in the lobby, John. If I remember 1776. It's like a 6-story or 5-story building right off the concourse.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Yes. Right by the concourse. So I walk in, and right away, as soon as I got in there, I heard the door slam behind me. I knew I was into something that was going to be a problem because there was 5 people totally silent against the wall to my right. And there was one guy out standing with his hands in his pocket, but the guy was very, very calm about everything.
John, just so our viewers and listeners understand, and I happen to know the case very well, those 5 people in the lobby were up against the wall like a stick-up position, right?
Stick-up, yeah. The 911 call, I found out later, came from the drug dealers because this guy was smart. People had money, so he'd get him coming in the lobby rather than going to the apartment. So the drug dealers called, and they said, there's a stick-up in the lobby.
This is demonstrative again of the madness that was the 4-6.
Madness.
The drug dealer called 911 because his customers were being robbed, because obviously he wanted that money to come in as revenue for his drugs. You don't want this stick-up guy to take it. You just can't make it up. Please. You can't make it up.
So when I walked in, I noticed how silent the people were. And later on, I found out when they interviewed some of the witnesses, this bad guy told them that the first cop who walks in the door, I'm gonna kill him. So that's why they were quiet. They knew when I walked through the door with my gun out, kind of pointing at the victims, because I didn't know who was who, and the outstanding bad guy right in front of me. So I got close enough where he was about 6 or 7 feet away, and this all happened in seconds. One of the victims was there to buy drugs, probably 20 years old. Lisa Gist, I remember her name. She knew it was going to happen, and she bolted towards the door, towards kind of me and the door, and knocked me to the left. At that same second, the bad guy, he draws his gun and starts firing. She gets hit with the first shot in the back of the head, right where I was standing. No exaggeration, Pat.
Right in
And
front of you.
we both,
Execution.
yes. And then there was 2 or 3 other people who were hit by ricochets or the gunfire. But I remember I emptied my revolver very quickly while moving, knowing like this victim had just gotten shot. And I was only like 6 feet from the bad guy. I I I was told that I hit him 3 times. The reason I know that is because he had a coat on and he had 3 holes, entrance and exit wounds, and then later on he took it off and threw it under the stairs. So I
So
moved
you knew apart from knowing that you hit him inherently, once he dumped his coat and fled, you guys recovered the jacket and it was three bullet holes through the coat. Okay. So but
'cause I was so close to him, but the guy was so high on crack and cocaine, crack had just come out at that time, that he didn't feel anything, didn't bleed out or anything. I was stuck in a corner maybe 6 feet from him, and actually, Pat, I probably could have run up and tackled the guy, but when you're in, like, a gunfight so fast, you're not thinking, like, physical, you're thinking, "Reload your gun," like we were trained to do, "Reload your
Sure.
gun and get back out there." Fortunately, as I was reloading my gun and we just had the, pocket pouches, we didn't have automatics, we had a 6-shooter, the people in the apartment opened the door and I kinda, like, fell into it, reloaded my gun, but the guy was reloaded first, and as I was about to go back out and I thought I'd be in another gunfight, thank God, 2 officers, Crystal Rodriguez and Jerry Spezial, came running through the door, and Crystal was shot in the chest, her bulletproof vest stopped it, and Jerry was shot in the arm. Absent them running in, and absent the girl running out the door, I don't think I'd be here. I think the guy was faster. He just reloaded his gun and kept on firing. Um, he ran up a couple flights of stairs and fired more.
John, sorry to interrupt. You know what's amazing is even in these drug buildings, and that was a drug building, we had great familiarity with it.
Yeah.
There's great people who were trapped behind 6 police locks. And that's one of those people who opened their door and allowed you to come into their apartment to reload. And I would imagine you probably used their apartment door as cover.
I did, and you know what? When you just said that, I remember them opening the door locks 'cause I'm like, "Why can they open the door?" And I was trying to get tucked into the door jamb, for protection, because I could see the guy there reloading his gun. Another
Yes.
interesting part about this story is I always carried a second gun, probably the Pat Brosnan school, right?
We call that the Bronx reload. You just reach and get another gun out of your pocket.
Is your organization prepared for today's technology and security challenges? At CMS Technology Partners, we deliver customized, best-of-breed solutions that protect your people, your property, and your peace of mind. From AI camera vision and real-time threat detection to advanced mobile weapon screening and X-ray imaging systems, we help you stay ahead of evolving threats without replacing your entire system. Plus, our expert team builds secure, scalable IT infrastructure, network and cloud solutions designed to fit your exact needs. With over 20 years of experience, CMS Technology Partners brings the technology, service, and support your business deserves. Visit callcms.com to see how we can strengthen your security and tech, so you can focus on what matters most.
And I'm back here with John Lynn, a great buddy of mine and a former colleague at the university on the corner of Ryer Avenue, or the 46th Precinct, actually, in the Central West Bronx. And we're just going through, if you're just joining us now, John was in an extraordinary gunfight a number of years back on all things, my birthday of all things, in the Bronx, right off the Grand Concourse, where he was one of 3 officers that were shot point blank by a mad dog crackhead gunman. And John just went through explaining to us how he was able to exchange gunfire, shot the guy 3 times, and now the guy is on the run. Take us through it, John.
So, Pat, the other interesting thing, which I forgot to tell you about, is I actually got hit in the holster. I didn't realize it until I was outside when the gunfire stopped. And I was trying to put my gun away. and there was a bullet stuck in my holster against a piece of metal. So then I had like a black and blue. That's all I got. So I was very fortunate not to get hit. And
A
again,
quarter of an inch, John, would have been your belly because it's where the bulletproof vest doesn't cover.
exactly.
Another eighth of an inch, right, or 60th of an inch would.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend is a
Yeah.
luck of the Irish. My God, that's close. Wow.
So as you know, it could be a, a really long story. The guy runs up to the rooftop. This is after he shot a few times. He reloads his gun. By the way, he had a pocket full of bullets, like in rubber bands, that he was reloading with, calm as could be. I think 20, we call the issue. There was guys in the fire escape. It was very, very good communication with all the cops there, like the best backup in the world. He ran on top of the roof, jumped down, and then kind of ran right in front of us. By that time, the news camera guys, I guess they had scanners,
Right.
showed up on the scene.
How
Somebody-
much time passed, John? Because I recall I came in for a day tour, and I remember the PBA had set up a canteen in the muster room.
Yeah.
Well, on the day tour, because I think like 50 or 60 members of the department fired their weapons during the search and the manhunt and
That's
the
right.
exchange of gunfire. But how long would you estimate from the time that he shot you, shot Jerry Spezial, shot Crystal Rodriguez, and fled up onto the roof before he reappeared while all the troops were set up and milling about searching for him? How much time would you guess?
20 minutes to 30 minutes. It was quite a while because I remember standing outside the building and I noticed the camera guy showed up, and there was so many cops there, from different precincts as well. So we definitely had the building surrounded, and I think ESU had just gotten there.
So I remember it being a 1013, a very rare citywide 1013, where you had transit, city, housing, the ESU, the SWAT team guys, and everybody kind of assembled there, as I recollect. John, wasn't it accurate that he went south on the rooftops, but it went to the cross Bronx, and he had a backtrack, which accounts for why he had to walk in front of all the cops to escape? Is that recollection accurate? Because how would he have gotten away? Except he'd have to dive onto the cross Bronx Expressway.
Yeah. What's interesting, Pat, is all the cops, all of us knew what to do. The other cops knew that the taxpayer buildings, you could jump from one to another. They were already on the roof. I think a sergeant told them to get down, but they knew what to do, which was very impressive. So the guy goes down the stairs. You're right. He has no place to go. He just casually starts running by. I think it was one of the officers, might have been Jerry Linnane, or somebody saw him and said, "That's the guy." He turns around. He starts firing at all of us. I'm taking cover. And the news camera guy had time to get there. He was kind of hiding in the little vestibule, and he thought he was shot in the head, but he got hit by a ricochet from a brick. The guy runs out to the concourse. By this time, Pat, there's like 30 cops there.
Yeah, John, I remember you sent me a clip from the newscast because they were set up on the concourse filming, and it was icy, right? It was a snowy night.
Yes, which is
Whenever
another.
it was falling, right? And they thought the guys were being shot because they were falling. Take us through that. It's unbelievable.
This one is unbelievable because I saw the whole thing from start to end. And as we're on the concourse, we're running down towards the concourse. Cops are falling because of the ice. And I swore too that they were getting hit because the guy was firing at the time. Another very kind of unique remote circumstance is a car from the 4-4 had no idea what was going on. They're on a different frequency. They were driving by and the bad guy fires 2 shots into their car. They get out.
They blew out the windshield. I heard where it was a perp in the back seat. They couldn't find him. He made himself so small he slid under the blunt seat.
Yeah. So it's just like, just passing through. This is what goes on here. And then so by the time we got in the concourse, there was 30 cops there. Now, you can't expect cops to say, well, I'm going to not fire my gun. I'm going to let this guy fire. Everybody who had their guns out and saw the guy started firing. I was actually behind a tree towards the suspect, not to get hit by friendly fire, because cops were firing kind of behind you because they had to. They felt that each one of them felt, and they were right, that they were being fired upon. So they were firing shots too. I think there was 119 shots fired or something. One of the most shots fired in a shooting in NYPD. And then finally, the bad guy goes down. ESU was there. I believe they actually finally took him down with a shotgun blast, and then he died on the street. But the circumstances of everything that happened, and we were all okay, is just still incredible that all that happened and we all survived it. And reflecting back, I'm I believe that later on in life, through my business and stuff, I reflected on it so much that I shouldn't be. I should be dead. I can take certain risk or legitimate risk. And I was always different after that, more grateful for things and everything that I had in my life and the experience and the people that I worked with. I was very fortunate that I made it through that for those reasons.
They had to give you a heightened level of confidence for certain,
Yes.
in terms of a never back down sentiment. And then I know you had another incident over in Echo where there was some gunplay involved. So I mean, you're 22. I mean, you parachuted into the most dangerous square mile in North America, and the black cloud slash gun magnet slash bullet magnet, that's John Lynn, was really living this in real time in a very, very dangerous time. Right, the opening day of crack. Right, you hit it
So
before. It's right around there in '86. We didn't even know what it was. How else would he have been able to reload so calmly?
that's what
About
they
it,
told me.
because he's
Yeah,
cracked
told
out
me
of his
that.
mind.
So high on crack. The interesting thing about Echo Place, there I knew what I was getting into. On weeks, I had no idea I was walking into a robbery. There I knew because it was me and Jerry Linane. We could hear the shots and we knew where they were coming from, but we also had people in the window like screaming. We were waiting for ESU. We couldn't wait. We had to go up. Me and Jerry went up the stairs. And if I remember correctly, I bullets, I didn't see the bullets come through, but I heard shattering, like the plaster of the wall shattering up the steps. And Jerry and I carried some kids down on the street and gave them to EMS. And the bad guy who was next door. He killed two people and himself. But we thought that he might have been in the apartment. And just through our training and I guess confidence is working with people, we knew what we had to do. And that was our job, to go into this shooting and save people, which we did because we didn't know where the bad guy was. We thought he was at the top of the stairs or where we were going. But again, the training kicks in, and the other incident probably gave me some confidence, not to go in there and do what we had to do and get people out.
But you mentioned that you knew what you were getting into, but when you think about the armed robbery call, right, on Weeks Avenue in 1776, you may have thought it was a robbery, that you were coming up on a robbery. This was a straight out cold-blooded execution.
Yes.
There's an execution
Remember like it was yesterday.
2 or
Yes.
3
I saw
feet
the
from
videos.
you. The young female gets her brains blown out
Yes.
with a bullet to the back of her head by this mad dog crack-infused killer. I mean, there's
You
no
had a rifle.
training in the
Yes.
universe. There's no training at the academy that could ever prepare you for such a horror show. And all the facts surrounding it, the manhunt, the double back by him, everybody falling, officers believing that they're falling because they've been struck, by bullets, but in fact they were sliding on the ice. The 100 and something rounds fired, and I forget how many times he got hit, but it was Guinness Book of World Records, if I recollect.
It is, Pat. So I don't know if you heard it. I was able, the 911 gave me the tape. Everybody likes it. It's a good tape of all the audio. And
Sure.
with the 911 calling, you could hear the drug dealer calling first, then the super of the building, and then on the street, there's a guy in the phone booth saying his shots on the Grand Concourse. The dispatcher's giving him a hard time. He holds the phone out and you can hear the shots, and she goes, "Okay, you're right." At the time, it's funny now.
It's
But
funny.
you
I've
can hear
heard
the
I've heard that tape. You've sent it to me years back.
Yeah, it's a good tape. You can hear the shots in the background. But as far as the cops falling, yes, I thought they were getting shot as well. So for such a massive amount of shots fired in such an open area, it's still amazing to me that we all survived, that we all made it. None of us
Absolutely.
left. Yeah.
Absolutely. And God bless,
The other-
and I know Crystal and Jerry Spezial fairly well, and thank God for everybody, and unbelievable.
When the storm hits or when your trees need serious care, you call O'Sullivan Tree Care. O'Sullivan Tree Care is a fully licensed and insured family-owned company, proudly serving Rockland County, Westchester County, and New Jersey. Their experienced team handles it all: tree removals, precision pruning, stump grinding, crane work, and emergency storm cleanup. Fast, safe, and professional. When severe weather strikes, O'Sullivan Tree Care responds when it matters most, clearing dangerous trees, restoring access, and protecting homes and properties. They also supply high-quality mulch and screen topsoil available for pickup or delivery. You call, they haul. What sets O'Sullivan Tree Care apart is reliability under pressure. When others step back, their crew steps forward. Experienced, equipped, and ready to work in the toughest conditions. So whether you're dealing with storm damage, downed trees, or routine property maintenance, make the call to the team you can trust. O'Sullivan Tree Care, 845-359-8733. That's 845-359-8733. O'Sullivan Tree Care, where quality meets reliability and the job gets done right.
A remarkable career over the last 4 decades. I mean, he was a successful builder, jet pilot, flying ambulance missions. He's a patent holder. He's a published author, and also an extreme athlete. 49 triathlons and 9 marathons. John, it would seem to me you'd have to be about 200 years old to accomplish all of that. How'd you pull it off?
When you say that, Pat, I'm saying, who's he talking about? I'm kind of amazed that I've done that. You know, a lot of that is coping skills, because as you know, when I got into the building business, you know, I had some issues again, the black cloud. Pat, one thing I wanted to add, because I always add this to this Weeks Avenue thing, is, you know, that I actually got sued by the parents of the girl who was killed, the victim, for engaging in reckless conduct. I was actually sued. The city settled out of court for $75,000, but for some attorney to file such an egregious, outrageous lawsuit engaging in reckless conduct and just settle out of court is just, how can any court even allow that? But I just had to add that in there because it always irked me.
Well, you can't make it up, number one, and it's important for our listeners and viewers to understand what that madness with wrongful death civil suits is a knee-jerk response by families time and time and time again. So the reckless conduct that John references would have to be the fact that he saved the lives of the other 4 victims who were being held at gunpoint against the wall. Okay, number one, that the drug dealer had called about, his customers. They're still breathing today, ostensibly, as a result of John's efforts, responding to an armed robbery at a building, a residential location. And that poor woman was murdered by this mad dog crackhead, and still the city paid $75,000. Folks, you cannot make it up. And that's a fact. Wow, I didn't know that, John, but listen, I'm not surprised, you know, but I'm not surprised, but I digress. While building your empire, while having these extraordinary, successful entrepreneurial endeavors, creating fantastic businesses, you somehow found the time, and I marvel at it, to just along the way to kind of pick up your FAA commercial pilot license, which has to be like a law degree in terms of intensity and time in the saddle.
Very intense.
I mean, it's got to be brutal.
Yeah.
So you just kind of flew through that little hurdle. You picked up a King Air 200, I believe.
Yes.
And you started flying air ambulance missions.
Yes, I
You
worked
got to
for a
tell us
company.
about this chapter, John.
So the reason I went to flight school is something I've always wanted to do, and I had some issues that you know about with my building development and corruption. It's too long of a story, but I figured I'd have to change my career, and I use it also as a coping skill, because when you're oppressed or you're a victim of corruption, crime, cover-ups, on, you get very angry, and I wanted to use that anger for a positive thing that I always wanted to do. And it did work, Pat. So I found this flight safety flight school in Vero Beach, Florida. And in 2005, I started flight school while I was like in my 40s. I was one of the oldest ones there, and all the other younger kids were much younger than me. But in any event, the best part about the flight school, Pat, is it's so merit-based. They don't care who you are, how much you know, how much money you have. You get things on your merit. There's no favoritism. It's fair, which I really enjoyed it. And it took my mind off all the negativity, you know, with the issues I had from my building business that were inflicted on me. So unfortunately, it's not a very lucrative type of business. I had to support my family, so I was only in and out of it for maybe 2 years. I still have all my license and everything. I'd like to get back into it, but I had to, make money and recoup some of the losses that I have due to the other issues that about that were inflicted on me with the building. Yeah.
Oh, you were on the right side of the angels, and you were doing God's work, right? It was therapeutic to you.
Always, yes. I say I'm doing God's work because no one else will. God sends me all these difficult people to challenge, and I do it. Would I do it again? Probably not.
Well, no, John, I am at a great advantage because my business, we had an investigative division, as you well know, and we were involved in the case that was a horror show, assisting with the investigative elements of the case that you had in North Rockland that I know very well. So maybe take the listeners and the viewers through that nightmare and how at the end there was a win at the end with a federal RICO case. And walk us through that, because I know those were dark days for you, and I remember very clearly providing some guidance and data and information and so forth investigatively. But those were tough days. You had a formidable opponent.
They really were, Pat, and your word formidable is correct. And if I had to do it again, I'd like to say I would have just paid them off and not sell to black people, but I probably still fight them. I'm always a big believer in doing the right thing and being honest, but in business, it usually doesn't always work like that. So this is, as you know, a very, very long, drawn out story, and I don't want to get into it. But in a nutshell, I bought this very large subdivision at 88 lots that overlooked New York City. And I was confronted by the local officials with corruption, shakedowns, blah, blah, blah. And then they really gave me a hard time when I sold to black customers. These were $1 million houses. My customers came to me claiming it was racism. And first I denied it. I said, no, they're just after me. They want money. But it became more prevalent after, it happened a couple of times. There's so much to this story, but I'll try to make it as quick as I can. The FBI was after this one bad guy who was an engineer there. And when they heard somehow that he was shaking me down, maybe they had his phone taps or whatever, they came to me. And they were going to wire me up, and my attorney was going to be there and do a payoff and lock the guy up. Well, that was going great. And then all of a sudden, they disappeared. I called them and said, what's going on here? They're still after me, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of like told me, don't call us again. Click. Thereafter, I made complaints to the New York Attorney General's office. At that time, I became the victim of 2 big arson fires, one to $1 million house I just finished, and then to my office building. By that time, it was on ABC News. The ATF was involved. They had cameras on some of my houses. And these are bad people. And they not only did the arson fires, but death threats. And you had helped me some.
Remember very well.
Pat, it's so hard to describe because there's so much to it, and I have a tendency to vent, which I don't want to do here. But in any event, through persistence, and I did believe in the system at the time that it eventually worked, I was going to make it work. So I filed complaints to just about everybody. The most interesting part about my background story, and it started with cover-up by the U.S., first the FBI. Then when me and my attorney went to the U.S. Attorney's Office to complain, we're basically like thrown out of there. I found out later that the supervisor who just kind of dismissed my complaint was James Comey. And as you know, I went to Plan B, which was going to the Attorney General's office. There was a retired chief who was the head of the Attorney General's office. He was amazed and impressed about the amount of evidence that you helped me with.
Yeah, remember case Virgos? I was up to my eyeballs in the case, John. It was unbelievable.
So much work, and this chief was so impressed, and so were his guys, of the amount of work that we had, that the building inspector, who was one of the corrupt officials, offered to turn himself in and make a proffer. And I remember you telling me, Pat, this firing has legs. You said, I remember you saying that, and it did. Shortly thereafter, they disappeared too.
We used to set up cameras outside his house with tripods around the
Yeah.
clock. His wife was having a heart attack, and we never identified why. During working hours, and that's the same guy, John, if I remember correctly, that we followed to Dublin on the plane.
That's
that the
correct.
same-
Yes,
is that
it's
the
the
same-
same guy.
So he thought he could just take off on vacation with his family and kids and make it all go away. And we sent one of the guys, right? He was detective in the 4-2, who had been outside his house with the camera. His name is Mike. We sent Mike on that flight, and Mike came on to. It's pretty funny. This guy, and his name was Patrick, the perp, the bad guy was named Pat, if I remember correctly. He was sitting in the seat with his kids and his wife, and he saw the detective who'd been outside his house for multiple weeks coming down the aisle on the flight to Dublin, and he had the biggest camera you could imagine. I gave him a 1,000-meter lens I used to use for my son to take to the baseball games, to Little League games. So Mike is walking down the aisle, the biggest camera in the world, surveillance camera, a clipboard with loads of paper on it, 20 pens in his pocket, like just we're doing it to break chops. But this guy was terrified, mortified. He was dying on the flight. And the funniest thing is, I had Mike take a flight back from Dublin, the next flight back. I said, don't worry about it. He's going to see you in his rearview mirror for the next 2 weeks. We just wrecked his vacation.
Psychological warfare, Pat, what you taught me.
Exactly. Psychological terrorization.
It does work, Pat. There's no doubt about it. That worked. Unfortunately, they had all the power because it was like dealing with the mob, but the mob was the government officials. The attorney general who was going to prosecute this case was in my office with the other investigators from the attorney general's office, and they were so impressed that we had this package for them all wrapped up with all the evidence and all the facts. That's why the building inspector offered to turn himself in, and then it all went away. They disappeared, and then they came after me with a vengeance. The 2 arson fires. But one of the worst things, Pat, is, I remember calling you. I was at home with my kids, and a knock on the door. 2 detectives from the DA's office come over, and they wanted to know why this gang murderer, guy just murdered somebody they locked up, had all my information on him on a little sticky pad. He wasn't stealing my credit cards. And I said, do you know my situation? And they didn't. Said, this is a serious, this is a threat to me. Called you immediately. He said, John, that's definitely a threat. They never did nothing about it. So here's this gangbanger who maybe they had a hit on me or something.
Contract, yeah.
And they did nothing. Pat,
What do you have there?
the attorney general's office under this chief and Alvin Bragg were so concerned about my safety. I was retired at the time. They gave me a police radio to carry. So if there was no threat, they covered it up. Why would you give a civilian, I was a civilian at the time, a police radio to carry? Because that's how concerned the chief was with my safety because of what he knows. And his background was mostly in organized crime. This was organized crime, but by government officials.
Yeah.
So
I remember where I was sitting, John, when you called me and told me about the sticky note. I remember saying, having had contracts myself that were put on me by gangbangers over the years, I understood how dead serious it was. And you were a civilian at the time. And it's even that much more demonstrative or more symbolic, the fact that nothing was done to pursue that any further. But you did get the RICO win, and we're going to come back to that, folks.
In today's world, risk doesn't announce itself. It hides in plain sight. That's where Brosnan Consulting Services comes in. Founded by industry veteran Patrick J. Brosnan, we provide risk advisory and protective intelligence solutions for individuals, corporations, and institutions that can't afford uncertainty. From due diligence and investigative consulting to strategic intelligence and protection planning, we help you see threats before they become problems. When experience matters and discretion is essential, trust Brosnan Consulting Services. Visit BrosnanInvestigative.com to learn more.
I'm here with John Lynn. We were just going through this horrific story in his remarkable career where the government was kind of like organized crime in many ways, and he had threats on him. He had double arsons, one at a property, one at his office, both of which I was at the scene. We were involved in the investigative side. Myself and John go back a lot of years. But John, on the federal RICO case against the bank, if I recall right, that led to a $5 million fine, $5 million
So
fine.
Pat, it's relevant, but it wasn't. I did file. This is a long story, and it's just too long to make it so people can understand. Is the officials, because they're all related. All these Democrat officials who corrupt. The bank that I dealt with, I had a very good relationship with. They told them that you have to go after this guy Lynn and shut him down. And then they came after me with a vengeance because I wasn't able to pay the mortgage because the town had shut me down and pulled the permits and wouldn't give me certificate of occupancies for the houses. So they they pretty much shut all my income down. So I did file a RICO case against the town, which was dismissed. I did it pro se. I did a great job. It was dismissed, not on the merits of the facts. It was dismissed because I was pro se, didn't know the procedures as great, and they had all the hooks.
You put it all together yourself.
Yeah, if you ask me, my biggest complaint overall about all these issues was the corrupt judges. I call them the black robe cartel.
Oh yeah.
They do whatever they want with no accountability.
Absolutely.
And I'm a fact guy. I'm just presenting the facts, which I did, and they really shut me down. The only federal government agency that worked was the Office of the Control of the Currency, OCC. I filed a complaint against the bank and all their misdeeds and in factual pattern. They actually investigated it, and they gave the bank a $5 million fine, and their stock went down tens of millions of dollars of overnight.
Wonderful.
I'm not a vengeful person, but that was some justice. But they did come after me even more after that. So being one guy, like a civilian, with no big backup, they all came after me. I think the judges were probably the worst. If you ask me,
I gotta tell you.
it would be about the judges, being oppressed by judges.
Right. Meanwhile, they're letting criminals out, reoffend, and to shoot people and to commit rapes and so forth. Judges, many of them are terrific people, but so many of them are soft on crime. And I like to think that they're complicit in the crime when you let someone back out. And you were seeing it now here on civil matters and criminal matters as well.
Yes, yes.
I know your story well, and John, it's another great chapter in so many ways, as it relates to demonstrating your extraordinary tenacity, right, which brought you from the time of 22 years old over on Weeks Avenue and the 4-6 through 4 decades, but also the resilience, because it's easy to be tenacious and persevering, but you got to be able to take the hits, stand back up, dust yourself off, and keep on charging. And those are two most central and most important characteristics that a person can have, in my view, is tenacity and the resilience. Can't have one without the other. And speaking of tenacity and resilience, really, 9 full marathons, 49 triathlons, including 2 half Ironman. John, and somewhere along the line, you saved some panic swimmer for drowning mid-race.
Right place at right time. I was drowning, and I was late for my event because I forgot my time chip, and I was one of the last ones to go. And
This story reminds me of Alexander the Great. Wept because there were no more worlds to conquer, John. I mean, honestly, there's no more worlds to conquer, right? I mean, let's call it like it is. An extreme athlete, published author. You recently, of course, in your spare 2 minutes, you invented Soulmate.
Well, I think that's
really cell phone lock.
Yeah, long story short,
Get through it.
And her students kept on losing their cell phones, so she convinced me that we need a lock that holds your cell phone. We made the Soulmate. Is it a hit? Yes. We just don't have the resources to market it. It's for a public restroom. You put your cell phone in it, and it locks the door so you can't forget it. Our little logo is you'll never go without it. So I'm still working on that, but I think I'm exhausted, Pat, from all like the legal battles and stuff. And at my coping
I think a
skills
small
are
division of Marines would be exhausted, John.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, interesting you say that, because one of my little sayings is, with all the cover-ups, I always feel like the civilian equivalent of a Marine left behind.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like.
But think of all you've achieved. When you think of the achievements, you think as a cop, a master builder, a jet pilot, author, inventor, right? Patent holder, extreme athlete, Well, am I correct in understanding, did you not share with me last night that you also became, somewhere along the line, you had 2 minutes to become a real cowboy? Cattle roundups, steer
Yeah.
roping,
This is a
rodeos,
funny
in
story. Yes.
Colorado, you've been doing that. And then close to my heart, we're also taking up a two-wheeling. You're a Harley rider now.
I'm a Harley rider, Pat.
Pushing
Sturgis,
Sturgis,
yeah.
John, come on.
Daytona. Yes. Yeah.
Let me ask you, I can't resist. Have you ever considered becoming an astronaut and just wander a day?
Thank you,
Why
Pat.
not? To
Confidence.
just go to Mars or go to the
Yeah.
moon and just go. You've got to be kidding.
Thank you,
You've
Pat.
got to be
Coming
kidding.
from you,
I
that means a
see.
lot.
I seem like a slacker, John. I feel like I'm slacking, like I'm sleeping at the switch when I look at your accomplishments.
You're making me
God bless
blush
you.
there, Pat. I do appreciate the confidence that you have, Pat. But you know what? I actually didn't like running. It's the coping skills. I was too tired to think about all the negatives. I'd have to go out and run and do these events. That helped me the most because people would go out and maybe do drinking or do things that are negative. I just made it a positive, and it really did work. The flight school and all the triathlon events were so helpful to me, and I'm very grateful for the coping skills that I have and I've learned, and I'm able to put things behind me because if you dwell on it, you're going to be miserable your whole life. So I'm very grateful about what I have and the people like you in my life. I'm very, very fortunate.
You've never been accused of being moderate or temperate, and I'll tell the listeners two funny John stories. First was, John said, I was never really a workout guy, Pat. I want to join a gym. I mentioned Vision Fitness, owned by my great buddy Rob Lagana, an amazing gym. I was a member there for 17 years. John, I think you were there about 11.
Yep.
And I joins the gym and promptly, guess what, folks, becomes consumed. He tells me a story of how he's running at like 4:30 in the morning. When else? No sleep, by the way. He's running on the treadmill, and apparently after 2 hours, I would never know this personally, of running on the treadmill shuts down, basically telling you, hey, knucklehead, you've been running for 2 hours. You've ran 20 miles. Take a break. So John says the machine would shut off at 6:30 in the morning and boot him off the machine. And that is a funny story. Because
Part of my anger management.
hell has ran for 2 hours on a treadmill, John. This is, and another time I called you, I forget we were connecting up on something or other, and you said, "Well, Pat, I have to get back to you. I'm going to go out for a quick 20." So, being immortal, I thought you referencing you'll be going outside for 20 minutes, like maybe I don't know, maybe going out and cutting the lawn for 20 minutes. No, you were referencing you were doing in the preparation for an upcoming and close marathon. You were busting out a 20-mile training run. 20 miles. Pat, I'll be right back. I got to do a 20. You can't make it up. And we're going to be closing up on a couple of things. And the one most important thing, how can all these lessons from the University in the corner of Ira Avenue, all this hardship into high achievement, what would be your advice that you've taken away from that? What would you tell folks that you have learned and to give them advice going forward where they can leverage hardship into high achievement and somehow replicate your extraordinary accomplishments?
I would say coping skills. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Meaning you take a negative and make it a positive, like the flight school. I would only have gone there if my business was, in trouble because of the corruption. And just faith. I'm very, quiet, but I'm very faithful. And like karma does work eventually. I've noticed everyone who came after me with so vicious and mean spirited, some way, somehow I'm not going to call it vengeance. I'm going to call it justice. In time, it does work. It does work. And now I'm very grateful, as tired as I am, that, where I am, including doing this interview with you, Pat, it's therapeutic for me because I'm very quiet with this stuff, very quiet. But I want to thank you for that.
Well, John, the pleasure's been mine, and it's been an amazing, amazing show, an amazing story, an amazing arc. And by the way, I know most of it, although I did learn a few things like that $75,000 on the civil wrongful debt. But listen, before we wrap up, folks, if you haven't already, do me a favor and hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss any future Batcave action. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, all the usual spots. Just search Pat Brosnan Live from the Batcave, and you will find us. And hey, leave a quick review or rating while you're there. It really helps us grow the show so we can keep bringing you the best guests like John Lynn, great stories like John Lynn, and straight talk like John Lynn that you won't hear anywhere else. Facts, focus, and forensic precision. Appreciate all the support. You guys make it happen every single day. Thank you and have an amazing weekend.